What daily life under Khorne really looks like is red. Only red. The ground, the sky, your hands, the air itself tastes like copper and salt. I was a gladiator once, before the blood god claimed this world. Now I am something else. Each morning, we rise to fight because hesitation means the ground will drink you. That would be mercy. I have seen men sink into the soil, their screams becoming part of the landscape. By nightfall, where they stood, brass icons weep blood from eye sockets, demanding new sacrifices. The worst part is not the endless killing or the constant war. It is knowing that with each life I take, I become more suited to this place, more a part of it. What happens when there is nothing human left in me to resist? I remember the colors of my old life, blues of the underhive water cisterns, grays of the manufactorum walls, even the pale yellow of the nutrition cubes we fought over like animals. But here on Varkath 9, there is only red, the ground, the sky, the air itself, thick with the copper taste of spilled life. Red is the only pigment the eye recognizes after enough time beneath the blood sky. Red is the only truth. They say we came here as prisoners, traitors to the Imperium, heretics against the God Emperor, or simply unfortunates caught in the wrong place when the Chaos fleets descended. It does not matter anymore. History dies quickly on a daemon world. Now we are simply meat for the grinder. Offerings to the blood god whose very name I dare not speak aloud lest it draw his gaze more firmly upon me. I was a gladiator once, a hive fighter from some forgotten spire whose name escapes me now. Jan Vess, they called me in the pits, the underhive serpent, fast with a blade and faster with my fists. Those skills serve me still, though the stakes have grown infinitely higher. On Varkath 9, every sunrise heralds another war, another blood tribute demanded by the land itself. Those who hesitate find themselves consumed, not by death, no. Death would be a mercy compared to what awaits the weak here. The weak become the world. I learned this truth on my 7th day. Or perhaps it was the 70th. Time loses meaning when the sky never truly darkens, only deepens to the color of clotted gore before brightening again to fresh arterial spray. I watched a man, a former administratum scribe, whose fingers were still stained with the ink of 1,000 stamped documents, simply stop fighting. He dropped his improvised spear, fell to his knees, and began to weep. Perhaps he had finally understood the futility of our existence here. Perhaps he merely wished for an end. The ground opened beneath him. Not quickly, not violently. It simply softened, like flesh becoming pliant beneath a surgeon's scalpel. The man sank, not struggling, not even when the soil reached his waist, his chest, his chin. His expression was one of terrible relief as the earth swallowed him completely. By nightfall, where he had knelt, a small brass icon had emerged, a stylized skull atop a mound of smaller skulls. The next morning, blood wept from its eye sockets. By midday, it had grown larger, demanding fresh sacrifices. This is what the land does. It drinks, it transforms, it hungers eternally. I fight because I must. Each morning I emerge from whatever shelter I have claimed during the night hours. Sometimes a hollow beneath the roots of the great bone trees that dot the landscape. Sometimes a cave in the rusted hills. Once, memorably, the rotting carcass of a daemon engine long since abandoned by its masters. I emerge with the weapons I have scavenged. A length of pipe sharpened to a crude point. The broken blade of what might once have been an Imperial Guard combat knife. My own hands, calloused now beyond all recognition of humanity. The fighting begins without preamble. There are others like me, survivors who have not yet surrendered to the will of the planet. We form loose bands sometimes, temporary alliances against larger threats, but these never last, cannot last. Sooner or later, the blood god demands we turn on one another, and we do. The alternative is unthinkable. Today I killed 3 men. One was new, his eyes still holding the terror of recent arrival. His imperial uniform hung in tatters from his emaciated frame, Aquila badge still gleaming faintly beneath the caked blood. He fought with the desperation of the newly damned. It was not enough. My pipe spear took him through the throat, and I moved on before his body had fully collapsed. The second was a woman, once possibly beautiful, now a scarred horror of ritual markings and half-healed wounds. She wielded twin blades fashioned from the thigh bones of something far larger than a man. We circled each other for what seemed like hours, neither finding an opening. In the end, it was not skill but simple chance that decided our contest. She stepped back onto unstable ground, the momentary falter all I needed to slam the jagged edge of my broken knife into her temple. The third was different, older. A survivor like myself, his body a canvas of scars, both received and self-inflicted. His eyes held no madness, no fear, no rage, only a terrible awareness. We recognized each other, I think, not as individuals, but as mirrors. He nodded once before we began. Our battle was swift, brutal, efficient. When my hands closed around his throat, he did not struggle. When the light faded from his eyes, I felt no triumph, only the temporary reprieve of another day earned. This is existence on Varkath 9, an endless cycle of violence broken only by moments of exhausted, vigilant rest. We fight, we kill, we survive another day, knowing that each sunrise brings us no closer to salvation, only further from what we once were. The worst part is not the fighting or the killing. It is the knowledge that slowly seeps into your bones, like the red rain that sometimes falls here. The knowledge that each act of violence is not survival, but transformation. With each life taken, the blood god's grip tightens. With each drop spilled, we become more suited to this place, more a part of it. I feel it in myself already. The way my heart quickens not with fear but anticipation at the sight of an opponent. The way my dreams are no longer nightmares of what I have done, but visions of glorious carnage yet to come. The way my hands itch when they are not wrapped around a weapon or slick with fresh blood. I am becoming something else, something that belongs here. And that, more than anything else, is why I continue to fight, not for survival, for resistance. As long as I recognize the horror of what I do, I remain at least partly human. The day I embrace it fully will be the day I sink willingly into the hungry earth and become just another brass icon weeping blood beneath the crimson sky. Night approaches now. The sky darkens to the color of a healing bruise. The fighting slows but never truly stops. I have claimed a small hollow beneath a fallen stone column for tonight. The stone bears markings that might once have been imperial, though they are worn beyond recognition now. It offers minimal protection, but more importantly, clear sight lines in all directions. Nothing will approach without my knowledge. I clutch my makeshift weapons and prepare for the fitful sleep of the damned. Tomorrow will bring more battles, more blood, more transformation. Tomorrow, like every day on Varkath 9, I will wake to the sound of distant screaming and the constant, pounding rhythm that some swear is the heartbeat of the blood god himself. And I will rise, and I will fight. Because the alternative is to become the world, and I am not ready for that surrender. The dreams come as they always do. Not restful visions, but vivid memories of violence overlaid with whispers. The dreams are the most dangerous part of existence here. They call to you, promise power, release, transcendence. They show you the path to becoming more than mere, surviving meat. They tempt with the possibility of ascension through surrender. I have learned to wake myself when the whispers grow too seductive. Tonight is no different. I jolt awake, hand already tightening around my crude spear, eyes scanning the darkness for threats. The column above me seems to pulse in the dim light, as if blood flows through stone veins just beneath its surface. Perhaps it does. Everything here lives in its own terrible way. Movement catches my attention. A figure approaches my shelter, silhouetted against the blood-dark sky. I tense, ready to strike, when recognition dawns. It is a child, or something wearing the form of a child. Small, thin-limbed, moving with unnatural precision. Its head seems too large for its body, its proportions subtly wrong in ways that trigger instinctive revulsion. "John Vess," it says, voice like grinding metal. "The blood god knows your name." I say nothing. Engaging with the demons is never wise. They come sometimes, wearing forms designed to lower your guard. Children, comrades, loved ones long dead. Their purpose is always the same: to tempt, to corrupt, to claim. "He has watched your battles with interest," the child thing continues, drawing closer. In the dim light, I can see its skin is not skin at all, but a shifting pattern of tiny brass scales that click faintly as it moves. Few last as long as you have without embracing his gifts fully. "I fight because I must," I reply despite myself, "not for your master's pleasure." The child thing laughs, a sound like breaking bones. Intent matters nothing, result is all, and the result is blood. Always blood. It extends a hand toward me. The fingers elongate as I watch, becoming razor-thin blades that gleam wetly in the darkness. "Take my hand, John Vess. Accept what you are becoming. The transformation will be easier if embraced willingly." For a moment, temptation blooms hot in my chest. The endless struggle, the constant vigilance, the slow horror of watching my humanity erode day by day. How much simpler to surrender, to accept the inevitable corruption, to become a willing servant rather than a reluctant sacrifice. Instead, I lunge forward, driving my spear toward the daemon's chest. It moves with impossible speed, evading the thrust easily. Its child face splits in a grin that extends literally ear to ear, revealing rows of needle teeth. The blood god rewards defiance as readily as submission. It hisses. All rage is tribute. Then it is gone, vanished as suddenly as it appeared, leaving only the faint scent of hot metal and old blood. I do not sleep again that night. Cannot risk the dreams returning, not with the daemon's words echoing in my mind. All rage is tribute. If even my resistance feeds the very power I resist, what hope remains? The question haunts me as I watch the sky lighten once more to the color of fresh wounds. Another day begins on Varkath IX. Another day of blood and transformation. As I emerge from my shelter, I see what the night has wrought. New brass icons have sprouted across the landscape, some small as a man's fist, others towering taller than the bone trees. The ground between them is disturbed, as if great forces moved beneath the surface while darkness reigned. In the distance, a mountain that was not there yesterday now dominates the horizon, its peak shaped unmistakably like a massive skull. The world changes constantly here, reshaping itself according to some incomprehensible design. Only the violence remains constant. I adjust my grip on my weapons and begin walking. There is no destination in mind, only the need to keep moving, to find battles that can be won, to spill blood before my own is spilled. This is existence reduced to its most primal elements. Hunt or be hunted, kill or be killed, or worse, be transformed. The first encounter comes quickly. A band of what were once men but are now something more and less simultaneously. Their flesh bears the marks of partial transformation, skin hardened to crimson plates in some areas, exposed muscle and sinew in others. They fight with crude weapons but unnatural strength, howling battle cries that contain no words, only animalistic rage. I should flee. They outnumber me 6-1. But fleeing attracts attention of other kinds. Predators that hunt between the realms, drawn to the scent of fear as sharks to blood. Better to stand and fight, even against impossible odds. At least this death holds the possibility, however faint, of remaining myself until the end. The battle is brief, brutal and surprising, not because I emerge victorious, though I do. 3 lie dead at my feet, their mutated bodies already sinking slowly into the hungry ground. The others fled when their leader fell, his skull split by a lucky strike from my improvised club. No, what surprises me is the clarity that descends during the fight. The perfect awareness of every movement, every opportunity, every threat. the way time seems to slow, allowing me to react with precision beyond my natural abilities. When it ends, I stand panting amid the carnage, blood not my own dripping from my weapons, from my hands, from my face where I had not realized I was wounded, and I feel it, the subtle shift within. Another piece of humanity scoured away, replaced by something harder, sharper, more suited to this place. The realization brings no horror this time, only a detached recognition. I am changing, have been changing since the moment I arrived on this cursed world. The only question is what I will become. Will I surrender to the will of the blood god, become one of his willing servants? Will I resist until my body betrays me, sinking into the ground to birth new brass idols? Or is there some third path, some way to survive that does not end in complete corruption? The answer, if it exists, lies forward, always forward. I scavenge what I can from the fallen, a blade of better quality than my own, strips of leather to reinforce my makeshift armor, a small object that might once have been a chrono but now counts down to something else entirely, its face crawling with tiny insectoid hands instead of traditional numerals. I leave the rest for the world to claim and continue my journey across the ever-changing landscape of Varkath 9. By midday, the sky pulses with unnatural energy. Great arcs of lightning the color of arterial spray flash between roiling clouds. Each bolt that strikes the ground leaves behind a smoldering crater from which new growth immediately begins to emerge. Not plants or any natural life, but twisted sculptures of bone and brass that writhe as if alive. Perhaps they are. The air grows thick, difficult to breathe. Each inhalation tastes of copper and salt and something else, something ancient and hungry. The wind carries sounds that might be distant battles or might be the world itself groaning in painful ecstasy as it continuously remakes itself. I find myself drawn toward a vast depression in the land ahead, a natural arena of sorts, its sides sloping gradually down to a central pit where dozens of figures already clash in chaotic melee. Some appear human still, or at least humanoid. Others have progressed further in their transformation, sporting mutations that would be impossible on any natural world. Extra limbs, chitinous armor, heads of beasts atop bodies still recognizably human. Logic dictates I should avoid this slaughter pit. There is nothing to gain from entering such chaos except an increased chance of death or worse. But logic holds little sway here. I feel the pull, the compulsion. The blood god wishes for spectacle, and all who exist upon his world are actors in his eternal play of violence. My feet carry me forward despite my mind's protests. Down the slope I go, weapon ready, eyes scanning for immediate threats. The sounds of battle grow louder with each step, metal on metal, metal on flesh, flesh on flesh as some combatants have abandoned weapons entirely, tearing at opponents with bare hands or newly grown claws. I reach the edge of the main conflict and pause, assessing. The battle appears to have no sides, no purpose beyond violence itself. Each fights for personal survival, forming momentary alliances only to break them seconds later when opportunity presents itself. There is a terrible beauty to it, a purity of purpose that calls to something deep and primitive within me. Before I can act, a figure disengages from the melee and approaches. A woman, or what remains of one. Her body is a patchwork of modifications, both deliberate and inflicted. Scars form intricate patterns across exposed skin. Where her right arm should be, a wickedly serrated blade of living bone extends instead, flexing and adjusting like natural muscle. Her face remains surprisingly human except for her eyes, which have no pupils, no iris, only the solid crimson of the sky above reflected back. "Fresh meat," she says, voice surprisingly soft and cultured despite her appearance. "You must be relatively new. The truly old ones never approach the offering bowls willingly." "Offering bowls?" I gesture to the depression around us. What else would you call them? The ground drinks what we spill. The more blood, the greater its thirst. She flexes her bone blade arm, the serrations catching the red light. "I have fought in 17 bowls across Varkath 9. This will be my 18th. You track the number? I track everything. Names, faces, kills. It is the only way to remain. Not oneself. She taps her temple with her remaining human hand. The blood god claims our bodies eventually, our souls too, if we allow it. But memories can be preserved, hoarded, protected. I study her more carefully. Beneath the mutations and battle damage, I recognize something familiar. A discipline. A deliberate resistance to total corruption. How long have you been here? I ask. She shrugs, the motion sending ripples through the living blade of her arm. Time means nothing. I arrived before the last reshaping. 3, perhaps 4 by imperial reckoning. Years. The word escapes me before I can contain my shock. Decades. Her pupilless eyes regard me with something like pity. Did you think this was temporary? That rescue would come? That death would release you? She laughs, a sound surprisingly musical amid the cacophony of battle surrounding us. There is no escape from Varkath 9, only different forms of surrender. Before I can respond, a howl rises from the center of the pit. Not human, not even close. Something vast moves within the heart of the melee, sending bodies flying with each sweep of limbs I cannot properly comprehend, even as I stare directly at them. They seem to shift between states of matter, solid one moment, vaporous the next, leaving trails of reality distortion in their wake. The offering begins, the woman says, raising her blade arm in salute to the monstrosity. Fight well, newcomer. I will look for you in the next bowl, though I doubt I will find you. With that, she turns and sprints toward the center of the conflict, toward the incomprehensible horror that waits there. I should run. Every instinct screams for retreat, yet I find myself following, drawn inexorably into the heart of slaughter. What happens next comes to me only in fragments, like a broken picked recording jumping between scenes without connection. I remember blood, so much blood that the ground becomes saturated, turns to a crimson mud that sucks at my feet with each step. I remember faces, human and otherwise, contorted in pain or ecstasy or both simultaneously. I remember the clash of weapons, the impact of flesh against flesh, the hot spray of lifeblood across my skin, and I remember killing, efficiently, effectively, without hesitation or remorse. A man with 3 arms falls to my blade. A woman whose lower half has become serpentine lunges at me, only to meet the point of my spear through her throat. A creature I cannot even describe collapses when I drive my weapon through an eye the size of my fist, releasing a flood of liquid that burns where it touches my skin. Through it all, the great horror at the center grows larger, feeding on the violence surrounding it. With each death, tendrils of crimson energy flow from the fallen into its impossible form. It does not fight directly. It does not need to. Its presence alone is enough to drive all others to greater heights of frenzy, myself included. I lose myself in the killing, become nothing but movement and reaction, a perfect instrument of death. Time loses all meaning. There is only the next opponent, the next kill, the next offering to the hungry ground and the thirsting god it serves. When awareness returns, I stand alone in a field of bodies. The woman with the bone blade arm stands nearby, her body slick with blood, both her own and others. We are the only ones still standing. The great horror has vanished, though whether it was defeated or simply departed after feeding, I cannot say. Impressive, she says, nodding toward me. Perhaps I will see you again after all. I try to respond but find my voice gone, replaced by a rattling hiss. Looking down, I discover why. A wound across my throat, so clean I had not felt it, gapes open with each breath. Fatal were this any normal world. Here, it simply weeps crimson tribute into the soil beneath my feet. As if in response, the ground trembles. The bodies surrounding us begin to sink, drawn downward by forces I cannot see but can certainly feel pulling at my own flesh. The woman laughs again, that same musical sound utterly at odds with our surroundings. The offering is complete, she says. Now comes the reaping. She turns and begins climbing out of the pit, her movements sure despite obvious exhaustion. I follow, my body responding sluggishly, the wound at my throat already beginning to close with unnatural speed. We reach the rim just as the ground behind us liquefies completely, becoming a vast whirlpool of blood and flesh and metal that spins with increasing velocity. From my new vantage point, I can see other offering bowls scattered across the landscape, each undergoing the same transformation. The entire world seems to hold its breath as the whirlpools spin faster, their centers dropping away into impossible depths. Then, with a sound like the death scream of a planet, they reverse direction. Instead of drawing inward, they erupt outward. From each pit, a geyser of molten brass shoots skyward, climbing hundreds, perhaps thousands of feet into the air before beginning to take shape. Massive forms coalesce from the superheated metal. Warrior giants wielding weapons larger than titans, beasts from nightmare given solid form. Monuments to violence that defy description or comprehension. The reshaping, the woman says, her voice now tinged with something like reverence despite herself. The blood god remakes his domain according to the tribute we have provided. Those who fought well are honored. Those who fell are incorporated. I watch in horrified fascination as the brass giants solidify, cooling from white-hot to dull red before settling into their final forms. Each is different, yet all share certain characteristics. Skulls feature prominently, whether as heads, decorations, or actual components of larger structures. Weapons bristle from every surface, and each giant figure stands atop a mound of smaller forms, humanoid bodies captured in eternal suffering. Those were people, I managed to say, my voice returning as the wound continues to knit itself closed. The fallen, they still are, in a way. The woman replies. Their consciousness remains trapped within the brass. They experience every moment for eternity. Their screams fuel the blood god's pleasure. Their suffering is his delight. I stare at the nearest brass giant, now fully formed and standing motionless on the horizon. A figure that might once have been human serves as its eye, the body contorted and fused with the metal surrounding it, mouth frozen in an eternal scream. Is that what awaits us all? I ask, unable to tear my gaze from the horror. The woman is silent for a long moment before responding. It awaits those who fall, those who surrender, those who fail to adapt. She turns to me, her pupilless eyes somehow conveying intensity despite their alien nature. That is why I count my battles, newcomer. That is why I remember every name, every face, because forgetting means surrender, and surrender means the brass. With that, she turns and walks away, her form gradually disappearing into the crimson haze that perpetually hangs over Varkath 9. I remain, watching as the world settles into its new configuration. The brass giants stand sentinel over a landscape transformed. Where before there were rolling hills, now jagged mountains thrust upward, their peaks shaped like weapons of war. Where there were plains, now vast arenas with tiered seating await new combatants. The world has remade itself into a more perfect engine of violence, a more efficient offering to the blood god. And I remain, changed but not yet transformed, wounded but not defeated, human still, if only barely. Night falls again on Varkath 9, another day of survival complete. How many more lie ahead I cannot say. All I know is that each brings me closer to one of two fates, the brass or something worse. The brass or something worse. The thought repeats itself in my mind as I make camp for the night, finding shelter beneath one of the newly formed brass monuments. The irony does not escape me, seeking protection in the shadow of the very fate I fear. But practical concerns outweigh symbolic ones here. The massive structure offers concealment from other survivors and predators alike. As I settle in, checking my wounds and weapons by the dim light that never truly fades from this world, I notice something strange about the monument, above me. Unlike the others I have seen, this one incorporates no screaming faces, no tortured forms. Its surface is smooth, almost featureless except for intricate patterns that might be script in some language beyond my comprehension. More unusual still is the sensation it produces. Most brass constructs on Varkath 9 radiate a palpable malice, an almost tangible hatred that scrapes against the mind of any who approach. This one feels different. Not benevolent, certainly nothing could be truly benevolent in the domain of the blood god. But neutral perhaps. Watchful rather than malicious. I find myself speaking aloud to it, though I know it is madness to do so. What are you? Why are you different? No response comes, of course. Yet as I stare at the patterns etched into its surface, they seem to shift subtly, rearranging themselves before my eyes, a trick of the light perhaps, or a sign of incipient madness. Either seems equally likely. Sleep comes reluctantly, and with it, the dreams. Tonight they are more vivid than ever before. I stand atop a mountain of skulls that stretches beyond the horizon in all directions. Each skull bears a face I recognize. Opponents I have slain. Comrades I have fought alongside only to betray when circumstances demanded it. Even faces from before, from my life as a hive fighter, spectators who cheered as I dealt death for their entertainment. At the summit of this grisly mountain sits a throne, massive beyond comprehension, forged from brass that pulses with its own heartbeat. Upon it sits a figure I cannot dare not look at directly. I know instinctively that to gaze upon it would be to lose the last fragments of my sanity. Jan Vess. A voice like the collision of worlds booms across the landscape of death. You resist still. I want to flee but cannot move, want to close my eyes but find them forced open. Want to deny what I am experiencing but know it for truth despite myself. I resist, I manage to say, my voice a whisper, lost in the vastness before me. Resistance, submission, two paths to the same destination. The voice holds amusement now, a terrible ancient mirth that shakes the mountain beneath my feet, sending skulls tumbling down its sides. All serve the blood god in the end, through battle or surrender, through defiance or devotion. There must be another way, I insist, though I know it for the desperate plea it is. The figure on the throne leans forward slightly, and though I still cannot look directly at it, I feel its attention focus upon me with terrible intensity. There is, it says, the words falling like hammer blows, the third path, the path of transformation. The mountain beneath me shifts, becoming liquid, and I begin to sink. Not into brass this time, but into blood, an ocean of it, stretching infinitely in all directions. As it rises past my waist, my chest, my chin, the voice speaks one final time. Choose your transformation, Jan Vess, or have it chosen for you. I jolt awake, a scream lodged in my throat. The brass monument above me pulses with inner light, the patterns on its surface flowing like liquid now, unmistakably rearranging themselves into recognizable shapes. Words in a language I should not understand but somehow do. The third path awaits. I scramble backward, away from the monument, but the words remain seared into my mind even after they fade from the brass surface. The third path, not resistance, which leads only to eventual defeat and absorption into the brass, not submission, which leads to willing corruption and servitude to the blood god, but transformation of a different kind. What could it mean? What transformation could possibly exist on a daemon world that is not ultimately in service to its master? The question haunts me as the sky lightens once more, bringing another day of violence and survival. I gather my meager possessions, check my weapons one final time, and step out from beneath the strange monument. As I do, I notice a small object on the ground where I had slept, a token of some kind, small enough to fit in my palm, made of the same brass as everything else on this world, yet somehow different, cleaner, purer. I should leave it. Anything on Varkath 9 is suspect, likely a trap or temptation. Yet I find myself picking it up, examining it closely. The token bears the same intricate patterns as the monument above, miniature versions flowing across its surface like water. As I hold it, I feel a certainty form within me, This object is important. It is connected to the third path, whatever that might be. I pocket the token and begin my daily journey across the transformed landscape. The world has indeed changed dramatically overnight. Where before there was some semblance of natural terrain, now everything is explicitly designed for war. The ground itself has hardened into plates resembling armor, jointed and flexible yet incredibly strong. The few plants that existed have become twisted parodies of vegetation, their branches sharpened to points, their trunks oozing substances that burn flesh on contact, and everywhere new arenas await. Some small, suitable for single combat between champions, others vast beyond comprehension, large enough to host battles between armies, all empty for now, but I know they will not remain so for long. The blood god demands spectacle. His world will provide it. I avoid the obvious battle sites, seeking instead the spaces between. The shadowed corners where his gaze might not fall quite so heavily. It is a fool's errand, I know. Nothing on Varkath 9 escapes his attention entirely, but degrees of scrutiny exist, and I will take any advantage, however slight. By midday, I have encountered only 3 other survivors, each as wary as myself. We circle each other at a distance, assessing threat and opportunity, before mutually deciding that conflict serves neither of us at present. Such temporary truces are rare but not unheard of. They never last. Eventually, the compulsion to violence overtakes even the strongest will, but for now, we go our separate ways. The brass token in my pocket grows warmer as the day progresses, not uncomfortably so, but noticeable. By late afternoon, it is almost hot enough to burn, and I find myself drawn in a specific direction, though I could not say why. Northeast, across a plain of metallic plates toward a formation of spires in the distance. I should resist this compulsion. Any force that directs one's path on a daemon world is suspect. Yet I find myself following nonetheless, driven by a curiosity I thought long scoured from my being by the constant struggle for survival. The spires grow larger as I approach, revealing themselves to be not natural formations but deliberate constructions. Massive statues, each depicting a warrior frozen in the moment of triumph. Their features are not the exaggerated bestial aspects common to the blood god's devotees, but something more restrained, almost noble in their severity. Each bears wounds that would be fatal, yet stands proudly, weapons raised not in threat but in salute. Between the statues, a path winds upward toward what appears to be a temple of sorts. Unlike the brass monuments that dot the landscape, this structure is fashioned from some black stone shot through with veins of crimson that pulse in time with the world's hidden heartbeat. The token in my pocket has become almost unbearably hot now, vibrating with energy I cannot comprehend. I should turn back. Every instinct for survival screams against proceeding further. Yet I continue, drawn by forces beyond my understanding or resistance. The temple entrance yawns before me, a mouth into darkness. No guards, no barriers, nothing to prevent entry save one's own fear. I hesitate only briefly before stepping inside, the token now burning against my flesh even through the fabric of my clothing. Within, the darkness is absolute for several heartbeats before my eyes adjust. The interior opens into a vast chamber whose ceiling is lost to shadow high above. At its center stands a pool of liquid too still to be water, too clear to be blood, though it shimmers with the same crimson hue as the sky outside. Around the pool, figures stand in silent vigil. Men and women, or what were once men and women, their bodies marked by the same changes that afflict all who dwell too long upon Varkath 9. Yet they stand with discipline, with purpose, with something I have not seen since my arrival on this cursed world: dignity. One steps forward as I enter, a giant of a man whose skin has hardened into plates like those that now cover the ground outside, yet whose eyes remain startlingly human despite their altered coloration. "You bear the token," he says, voice like stone grinding against stone. "The Watcher has chosen you." "The Watcher?" I ask, my hand moving unconsciously to the burning brass in my pocket. "The one who stands apart. The one who observes the long game, The giant gestures to the pool at the center of the chamber, the one who offers the third path. What is this third path? Not resistance, not submission. What else exists here? The giant laughs, a sound like avalanches in distant mountains. Subversion. The word hangs in the air between us, dangerous and alluring. Subversion. Against the blood god? The very thought borders on madness. Yet here stand these warriors, changed but not corrupted, transformed but not surrendered. Impossible, I say, though I want desperately to believe otherwise. Nothing exists on a daemon world that its master does not permit. Permit, yes, comes a new voice from behind me, musical and harsh simultaneously, like crystal breaking in precise patterns. But permission can be based on ignorance, on misunderstanding, on arrogance. I turn to face the speaker and find myself looking at the woman with the bone blade arm from the offering bowl. Up close, in the dim light of the temple, I can see her more clearly. Her mutations are extensive but controlled, deliberate rather than chaotic. The living blade that serves as her right arm pulses with its own rhythm, distinct from her heartbeat or the world's. Her pupilless eyes regard me with recognition. "You survived," she says, something like approval in her tone. "Few do, after their first bowl." "The token," I say, pulling the brass disc from my pocket despite the heat it radiates. "It led me here." She nods, unsurprised. "The Watcher chooses carefully. It has observed your battles, your resistance, your refusal to surrender to what this world would make of you." "What is this place? Who are you people?" The woman exchanges glances with the giant before responding. "We are the perpetually defiant, those who walk the third path. Neither servants of the blood god nor his unwilling sacrifices, but something he did not anticipate." "Explain," I demand, suspicion warring with desperate hope within me. The woman gestures, and the liquid in the central pool begins to move, forming images that shift and change as she speaks. The nature of chaos is corruption, perversion of purpose, twisting of intent. It is the blood god's nature to corrupt all he touches, to transform all who dwell within his domain into instruments of his will, whether they embrace that transformation or resist it. The pool shows familiar scenes, warriors fighting, the fallen becoming brass, the willing becoming monstrosities devoted to slaughter. But corruption can itself be corrupted, she continues, her voice taking on a cadence like ritual. Perversion can be perverted, transformation can be redirected. New images form in the pool. Warriors like those around me, their bodies changed but their eyes clear, fighting not with mindless rage but with terrible precision, against daemons, against the fully corrupted, sometimes against each other, but in ways that seem purposeful rather than merely destructive. The blood god feeds on violence. The giant rumbles from behind me. This cannot be changed, but violence can have purpose beyond feeding him. It can have meaning, direction. "You fight to feed the blood god willingly?" I ask, disgust evident in my voice. "We fight because we must," the woman corrects. "As do you. As does every living thing on Varkath 9. The difference is that we have found purpose in that necessity. We have claimed agency in our own corruption." The images in the pool change again, showing warriors undergoing transformations similar to those I have witnessed across the planet. But instead of surrendering to the changes, embracing the mindless rage they bring, these figures seem to direct the process, control it, harness it. "The third path," I whisper, understanding beginning to dawn. Not resistance, which is futile, not submission, which is surrender, but controlled transformation. "Yes," the woman says, satisfaction evident in her tone. "The blood god would make us his mindless instruments, existing only to kill and spill blood in his name. We accept the changes his world works upon us, but we maintain our minds, our purpose, our humanity, in what ways we can. How is this possible? How have you not been discovered? Destroyed?" The giant laughs again. That same mountainous sound. The blood god sees all violence as tribute. He does not scrutinize its purpose so long as blood flows. In his arrogance, he believes all corruption leads inevitably to him. And you prove otherwise. We attempt to, the woman says, her voice more somber now. It is not an easy path. Many who begin it fall nonetheless, either to the brass or to full corruption. But it is a path where before there seemed none. I stare into the pool, watching as it shows warriors like these undergoing the same trials I have faced. Fighting in the bowls, surviving the reshapings, enduring the changes worked upon their flesh, but maintaining something the others lose. Something I have been losing day by day without realizing. Purpose. What would you have me do? I ask finally, the brass token cooling in my palm as if responding to my dawning acceptance. The woman smiles, a surprisingly human expression on her transformed face. First, you must truly understand the choice before you. The third path is not salvation. It is not escape. It is merely a different form of damnation, one with dignity, with agency, with purpose. I understand, I say, and I do. There is no rescue from Varkath 9, no return to what I was before, only different forms of what I will become. Then you must undergo the controlled transformation, the giant says, gesturing to the pool. You must face what you fear most, the change that comes to all who dwell here, but you must master it rather than being mastered by it. I look at the pool with new understanding, not merely a scrying device, but something more, something that will change me irrevocably. And if I refuse? The woman shrugs, the motion sending ripples through her living blade arm. Then you leave, continue as you were, fight, kill, survive as long as you can, eventually fall to the brass or to corruption. It would be no different from the thousands who came before you, the thousands who will come after. The choice seems obvious when framed that way. Yet something holds me back, a question that needs answering. What is your purpose? I ask. If you control your transformation, direct your violence, what goal does it serve? What meaning have you found in this meaningless place? The woman and the giant exchange glances again, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, it is the woman who answers. We seek to understand the nature of the blood god, not to worship or serve, but to know. For in knowledge may lie weakness, in understanding may lie vulnerability. You seek to defeat the blood god? The very thought is blasphemy beyond measure, madness beyond comprehension. No, the giant corrects. We are not so arrogant. The blood god is a fundamental force of existence. He cannot be defeated any more than gravity can be persuaded to release its hold, but he can be understood. And what can be understood can be predicted, manipulated, perhaps in some small way directed. To what end? Survival with purpose, the woman says simply. The only victory possible on Varkath. I consider their words carefully. What they offer is not salvation in any traditional sense, not freedom, not escape, but purpose amid the endless slaughter, meaning within the meaningless violence, agency in my own inevitable corruption. It is more than I dared hope for since arriving on this blood-soaked world. I accept, I say, extending the brass token toward the pool. The woman takes it from my hand, her fingers surprisingly warm and human despite their altered appearance. The Watcher has chosen well, she says, then tosses the token into the center of the pool. The moment it touches the surface, the liquid erupts into motion. Not splashing outward but spiraling upward, forming a column that reaches toward the unseen ceiling high above. Within the column, images flash by too quickly to comprehend. Faces, battles, transformations, deaths and rebirths beyond counting. The memories, the giant explains, his voice reverberating through the chamber. All who have walked the third path, their experiences, their knowledge, their understanding of the blood god and his domain. The column collapses suddenly, the liquid falling back into the pool with impossible gentleness, leaving not even a ripple across its surface. But the pool has changed. Where before it reflected the crimson hue of the sky outside, now it gleams like polished brass, reflecting my face back at me with perfect clarity. Except it is not my face. Not entirely. Changes I have noticed occurring gradually since my arrival on Varkath 9 are now prominently displayed. The hardening of skin along my jaw, the subtle alteration in the shape of my eyes, the faint ridges forming along my forearms where muscle and bone have begun to reshape themselves. The controlled transformation reveals what you are already becoming, the woman says, standing beside me now. It does not change your path, it merely allows you to walk it with awareness, with purpose. What happens now? I ask, unable to tear my gaze from the reflection that is both me and not me simultaneously. You enter the pool, the giant says from my other side. You face what awaits all who dwell upon Varkath 9. But you do so willingly, with full awareness, maintaining your sense of self even as your body changes. Many fail, the woman adds, her tone gentle but unflinching. Their minds break under the strain of transformation. They emerge as what they sought to avoid becoming. Mindless servants of the blood god, or worse, empty vessels ready to sink into the brass. And if I succeed, then you join us, the giant says. You fight as we fight, with purpose, with control. You learn what we have learned about the nature of the blood god. You add your knowledge to the pool for those who come after. I look around at the gathered warriors, seeing them now with new understanding. Each has undergone what awaits me. Each has faced the transformation and maintained their sense of self, their purpose, their humanity in whatever form remains possible to them. I think of the endless battles I have fought since arriving on Varkath 9, the lives I have taken, the changes I have felt working through my body and mind, day by day. I think of the brass monuments with their eternally screaming faces, of the fully corrupted warriors who exist only to kill and spill blood. And I step into the pool. The liquid is neither warm nor cold against my skin. It feels like nothing at all, as if I have stepped not into water but into some form of energy that registers on none of my senses. Yet I can see it rising around me as I wade toward the center, still reflecting my changing face with perfect clarity. At the pool's center I stop. The liquid has reached my waist now, rippling gently with each breath I take. I look to the woman and the giant who stand at the pool's edge watching with expressions I cannot read. What do? I call to them. You surrender, the woman replies. Not to the blood god, not to corruption, but to transformation on your own terms. You accept what you are becoming while refusing to lose who you are. The distinction seems academic, philosophical rather than practical. Yet as I stand there, feeling the not liquid rising higher around me, I begin to understand. The changes working through my body since my arrival on this world have been accompanied by changes in my mind. Increased aggression, decreased empathy, a growing hunger for violence that exists independently of survival necessity. I have been fighting those changes as much as I have fought the physical ones, seeing them as corruption to be resisted rather than transformation to be directed. I accept, I say, the words feeling like ritual. I accept what I am becoming. I accept the path laid before me. But I walk it with purpose, with agency, with self-awareness the blood god would deny me. The liquid surges suddenly, rising past my chest, my shoulders, my chin in the space of a single heartbeat. I barely have time to draw breath before it covers me completely, enveloping me in its strange, sensationless embrace. And then the pain begins. Not physical pain, though that comes later. This is deeper, more fundamental. The pain of identity under assault, of selfhood threatened with dissolution, of becoming something other while desperately clinging to what made me me. I see myself as I was before Varkath 9, the hive fighter, skilled but ultimately insignificant in the vast machinery of the Imperium. I see what I have become since arriving on this world. The survivor, hardened by necessity, changed by environment, walking the knife edge between resistance and surrender. And I see what awaits if I continue as I have been, The inevitable fall, either into the brass or into willing corruption, the loss of self either way. But now I see a third possibility, the path shown to me by the perpetually defiant, transformation on my own terms. Change directed by purpose rather than merely resisted or embraced. The pain intensifies as my body begins to change more rapidly than before. Bone reshapes itself beneath my skin, muscle tears and reforms in new configurations. Organs shift, some becoming redundant, others developing new functions. My blood burns in my veins, changing from merely human to something both more and less. Through it all, I cling to one thought, one core of identity that must not be surrendered no matter what other changes occur. I am John Vess. I fight because I must, but I choose the meaning of my battles. Time loses all relevance within the transformative embrace of the pool. It could be moments or millennia that I float there, simultaneously dissolving and reforming, but eventually the pain recedes, replaced by a strange clarity, awareness of my body that extends beyond normal human perception. I can feel the flow of blood through my veins, the expansion and contraction of enhanced muscles, the subtle shifts of bones that have grown denser, stronger, more resilient. I can sense the changes in my brain chemistry, the new neural pathways forming to accommodate abilities no unaltered human could possess. And I remain myself, changed, transformed, but not surrendered. Not corrupted in the way the blood god intends. The liquid recedes suddenly, lowering me gently to the bottom of the pool. As it drains away completely, I find myself kneeling on cool stone, naked, my old clothing destroyed during the transformation. My skin gleams like burnished copper in the dim light of the temple, hardened in places to a durability approaching ceramite while remaining flexible at the joints. My arms have lengthened slightly, the muscles more densely packed, capable of generating force that would have been impossible in my previous form. My chest has broadened, ribcage expanded to accommodate enhanced lungs, and a heart that now beats with a doubled rhythm. My legs have altered to support my increased mass, the bone structure reinforced with deposits of a material that feels more like metal than calcium. But the most significant changes are less visible. The way my mind processes sensory information has accelerated dramatically. I perceive details I would have missed before. The subtle shift in air currents as someone approaches. The microscopic tells in facial expressions and body language that reveal intent before action. The taste of chemicals in the air that speak of emotional states, of truthfulness or deception. I rise to my feet, marveling at the smoothness of motion, the perfect integration of my transformed body, despite its significant alterations. The woman approaches, carrying a bundle of clothing that she offers to me with a nod of approval. "You have walked the third path successfully," she says, as I dress in garments clearly designed to accommodate a transformed physiology like mine. Few manage it on their first attempt. It feels. I search for words to describe the sensation of being fundamentally changed, yet fundamentally the same. Correct. As if I have become what I was always meant to be, rather than what circumstance or the blood god would make of me. The giant laughs his mountainous laugh. Well said. The controlled transformation reveals the form most suited to your true nature, not the one the blood god would impose based solely on his own desires. I look around at the gathered warriors with new eyes, seeing now the incredible diversity in their transformations. Some, like the giant, have become massive, their bodies clearly adapted for frontline combat. Others are more subtle in their changes, built for speed or stealth or other specialized functions. Each unique, yet all bearing the same clear-eyed purpose that separates them from the mindlessly corrupted outside. "What now?" I ask, flexing my transformed hands, marveling at the new strength I can feel humming through them. "Now you learn," the woman says, "about Varkath 9, about the blood god, about yourself and the specific gifts your transformation has granted you. Then you fight, as we all do. But you fight with purpose, with meaning beyond mere survival. And that purpose is understanding the blood god, finding weakness in an entity that has existed since before humanity crawled from its cradle." The giant shrugs, the motion sending ripples through the plates that have replaced much of his skin. It is a purpose that will never be fully achieved. The blood god is beyond complete comprehension by beings such as ourselves, but in the pursuit of understanding lies dignity, agency, the very things the blood god would strip from us. And occasionally, the woman adds with a small smile, we discover things that may indeed prove useful, small vulnerabilities, momentary blind spots in his attention, ways to direct his gaze where we wish it to fall rather than where he might otherwise look. I consider their words carefully. What they offer is not freedom in any traditional sense, not escape from the nightmare of Varkath 9, but it is purpose where before there was only endless, meaningless struggle. It is agency where before there was only reaction. It is dignity where before there was only slow degradation. I will join you, I say finally. I will walk the third path. I will fight as you fight, learn as you learn, seek understanding where before I sought only survival. The woman nods, satisfaction evident in her expression. Then welcome, Jan Ves, to the perpetually defiant. The blood god believes he owns this world completely. We exist to prove otherwise, in whatever small ways we can. The giant extends a massive hand toward me. There is much to learn, much to understand. The path ahead is no easier than the one behind, but it is yours to walk by choice rather than compulsion. I take his hand, marveling at how my transformed body now makes the gesture possible, where before his size would have made it awkward. I choose this path, I say, the words feeling like oath. I accept this purpose. And so I join the perpetually defiant, those who walk the third path on Varkath IX. In the days, weeks, months that follow, I learn much about the true nature of this demon world, more complex and intricate than I had imagined, about the blood god, whose attention is vast but not infinite, whose perception can be misdirected if one understands the patterns of his gaze, about my own transformed body, its capabilities and limitations, the specific gifts granted by my controlled transformation. I fight still, of course. All on Varkath IX must fight or be consumed, but I fight differently now, with precision rather than desperation, with purpose rather than mere survival instinct. I enter the offering bowls willingly, participating in the blood god's spectacles while gathering information, identifying potential recruits for the third path, undermining the full corruption of others in subtle ways the blood god does not perceive or does not care about. I witness reshapings from a new perspective, understanding now the complex interplay of energies that transform the landscape according to the blood god's whims. I learn to predict these changes, to position myself and my fellow defiant advantageously as the world remakes itself. And I encounter the fully corrupted, those who have embraced the blood god's gifts without reservation, becoming his willing instruments of slaughter. I fight them when necessary, avoid them when possible, study them always, for in their corruption lies the path the blood god would have all follow. In their mindless devotion to violence for its own sake lies the future he envisions for his domain, a future that perpetually defiant exists to subvert, to undermine, to redirect in whatever small ways we can. We harbor no illusions about victory as traditionally defined. The blood god cannot be defeated, cannot be overthrown, cannot be denied his domain or his due. But he can be understood. His attention can be directed. His assumptions can be exploited. In this understanding, this direction, this exploitation, lies the only form of defiance possible on Varkath 9. It is enough. It must be enough, for it is all we have. I am Jan Ves, once a hive fighter, now one of the perpetually defiant. I live beneath the eternal blood sky of Varkath 9. I fight in the offering bowls. I witness the reshapings. I spill blood and have blood spilled in turn. To the blood god, I appear no different from any other denizen of his domain, merely another instrument of violence feeding his eternal hunger. But I am different. I fight with purpose beyond mere survival. I kill with meaning beyond mere necessity. I exist with dignity. The blood god would deny me. And in that purpose, that meaning, that dignity, lies the only victory possible in this place of eternal war. It is not salvation, it is not freedom, it is not escape. But it is mine by choice rather than compulsion. And in that choice lies the third path, the path of transformation on my own terms, the path of the perpetually defiant. The red sky bleeds eternally above. The brass monuments stand sentinel across the landscape. The offering bowls fill and empty according to rhythms older than humanity itself. And beneath it all, unseen by the blood god's gaze, we walk the third path, defiant, purposeful, free in the only way possible in a reality where freedom itself is an illusion. I am John Vess. This is my choice, this is my path, this is my defiance. Under the blood sky of Varkath 9, it is enough.